Absolutely.
But if you do it the way Grandpa did it, he existed without the internet. And that's no disrespect to Grandpa. Grandpa used every tool available to him to be successful at the time. But now we got TikTok. So if you're not using TikTok to make all your decisions, I want to give you a rifle that shoots straighter and further and is a more consistent shot. You still got to raise it up to your shoulder, look through the scope, adjust for wind, slow down your heart, and pull the trigger.
There is a podcast in Iowa, Farm4profit was named by they. Fate stirred up a banker near, then quick came an auctioneer. Making profit was their first goal, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Soon may the farmers come to bring us guests and beer and fun. One day when the recording's done, we'll take our mics and go. These formats shook us to our core. With Farm4Fun, you will not snore. Banker set all mics to on, and the mullet of podcasts was born. Soon may the farmers come to bring us guests and beer and fun. One day when the recording's done, we'll take our mics and go. Before we knew, conversations grew. Growing corn even said F you. So won't you join Tenor, Dave, Corey, and crew? Please like, share, review. Soon may the farmers come to bring us guests and beer and fun. One day when the recording's done, we'll take our mics and go.
If you aren't farming for fun, you probably don't owe a pair of white New Balances.
It's time for another Farm for Fun episode. This is Tanner Winterhoff.
This is Corey Hillebo.
And this is David Whitaker.
Welcome back. Seems like it's been forever, but we know it's only been a couple weeks. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. And thank you for telling all your friends, family, and neighbors about us. We really appreciate it.
I can tell you, it doesn't seem like it's been forever for me.
What?
Feels like it's been minutes.
Oh. Way to make me sound like a jerk.
I'm just joking.
Oh, boy.
Oh, really? Are you? Yeah, that's how you try to get out of something at the end of it.
No offense, though.
No offense. Yeah.
None taken.
Bless their heart.
Yep.
Absolutely. No, thank you again for sharing your reviews, leaving a rating behind. That really helps us out in the world of podcast land. Today's Head of the Class listener review brought to you by Gearinghoff. Remember, they're head of the class no matter the crop. If you need a harvesting head for this fall, for whatever your crop is, remember, look up Gearinghoff. Corey, who'd we have leave us a review this time?
Corn King 95. I can actually understand that username for once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robert King from Tennessee. If you're not listening to the Farm4profit podcast, you should be.
Absolutely.
Oh, Tennessee.
I can't agree with him more.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
But you're listening now, so I guess you're already listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, we got to throw a shout out to Ag Leader. We love their products. I used them all spring, and I got the electric drives and the hydraulic downforce on mine. Made an old planter new again. It's awesome.
Almost high speed. Had you do a trial there, I saw.
Yeah, I was planting 10 mile an hour. Good thing I got the new horse on the front, because the old one last year when I tried to do it, it stalled out about 8.5. Was everything she wanted. So
how's the stand look?
It looks great, and actually Ag Leader's coming out next week, and we're going to go really dig into it. So be
nice. Cool. Awesome. Yes, look up Ag Leader Local, and thank you again for the support. This has been an episode long in the making.
Oh, I am pumped. I feel like I should stand up.
Do it. Get into it.
I don't know, Dave. I don't think Dave can turn me down that far. On today's Mullet of Ag podcast, we are really emphasizing the party in the back with a guest who I deemed one of my best Ag Twitter followers. One of my best Ag Twitter followers. Almost a year ago, Ag Twitter seemed to fall quiet and seemed like it was missing something. Only to find out that this man had went dark. Emptiness and social media boredom set in. It was a true void that only could be fulfilled by no one. Today, we are unofficially rolling out the red carpet for the resurrection of this beloved Twitter account because he is back. This man is stuffed full of personality, has a huge heart, was a commodities trader, and does his own cattle and farm tours across the country. He's the man behind the phrases buy or cry, why charge, cattle will pay. From Chicago, Illinois, Snarkosaurus, Rupert Williams.
Oh, hi.
Whew, I struggled with the first part of that. I'm sorry.
Oh, my.
Welcome.
That's what happens when you get excited.
Welcome, Snark.
Well, thank you. I feel like we should just end the episode right there. I'm in. I'm like flexing right now.
Mic drop. We're out.
Yeah, that's it. That's the show, guys. Thanks for coming.
Oh, my God.
Tip
Like
your
Tanner
server.
said, this I think when we started the Farm for Fun show, which we should mention that, right?
This
like
is
it was
Corey's,
roughly.
This is Corey's 1 year anniversary show. So Corey has now, and Farm for Fun is in its first.
Depending on when this comes out.
Oh, this will be the first show of the second year of Farm for Fun.
Wow.
Yeah, and then the Farm4profit was about basically a year before that, right?
That
So
one.
like this is your guys' anniversary too.
Just about coming up.
Second year, so yeah. But Snark, I think, was like top of the list for getting guests on, but we didn't want to start with royalty. Like we wanted to like. Well, we should say Elena was our first guest,
That's right.
who we love,
Absolutely.
and but she was also kind of finding her way, and we were kind of finding our way, and it turns out to be a great partnership. But now we feel like after a year, we have a little bit of experience. We can have Snark on.
We don't have it all figured out, but we got a lot of it figured out.
Yeah.
So what's
Thanks
up? What's up, Snark? You just left. You thought this was tomorrow, so you left like 5 hours ago, or
Yeah.
whatever.
I was on the death trap that is I-80 east of Des Moines. So that was interesting. White knuckle the whole way. Indy 500 was this weekend, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I felt like I was on it again. I felt like I finished that final lap when I got off 35 and started heading north. So that was it's nice to get off that road. Didn't
Well,
die.
and 35 was coming north when you came up was probably
it's-
pretty full too.
it's fugly,
yeah,
sure.
because Des Moines, handed out. So
Yeah.
awesome. So what have you been up to, man? Like I said, you were gone for what seemed like a year. I don't know if you were completely gone, but from what you were doing.
Yeah, no, there's this Chinese sneeze that happened, the Wu flu.
Yeah.
And they put Chicago on lockdown, and they put everybody in solitary confinement. And they're slowly releasing people based on behavior. So they did it in stages, and now I'm finally able to go back out into the world again. Really odd thing. I guess we found out a year ago that everybody was afraid of dying. And not to, my apologies to people that have lost people, but it was just a really bizarre thing in the city, right? Yeah. Like now all of a sudden everybody was weird. Switch sides of the sidewalk. And one of the things I love about Chicago is the energy of the city. And it just died. I mean, I don't know any other way to describe it. It was the first time I'd ever considered in the 20 years I've lived there to leave. And it feels like home to me. So for me to kind of get to that point, I was just, I don't know what's here anymore, right? Yeah. You go, and even now in the Loop, where I went every day for forever, there's still nobody there. I mean, it's like a ghost town at 4 p.m. on a Friday, and that normally has like 10 million people there. So basically, it's the equivalent of downtown Des Moines now. I mean, concrete jungle, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're putting houses down there. My apologies to the listeners. I do enjoy Des Moines. Don't get me wrong. That's where I'm going next. So Snark After Dark, the after party is, it's on that one street with all the bars.
That
Court
one
Avenue.
street.
Court Avenue.
Maybe there's a couple of them. Is it 6th Avenue or something? What's
Court
the,
Avenue, I think.
Whatever. It doesn't matter.
You're right. There might
You
only
can
be
find
2
it.
streets. Yeah.
No, it's a great spot. Last time I was here a few months ago, I actually got to spend the evening in Des Moines, and we had a good time. So
Yeah.
it's always been a good time to me. It's just never a place that I had visited a lot.
Yeah.
So every time we have a guest on, we always find listeners that don't know who our guest is, no matter the size, no matter their impression. So could you explain why you're in Chicago, what you're talking about in Chicago, what do you do for a living, what's your tie to agriculture?
Okay, so I think I probably should insert the disclaimer somewhere in here. And so we're playing a game on this podcast that every time I throw out the disclaimer, it's part PTSD, part compliance, part whatever, that futures and options offer unlimited risk, and anything you listen to on this podcast, if you do it, you're going to lose all your money and then some. That should cover everybody.
Every time you hear that, take a drink.
That's right. So that was the first time, so I'm going to drink my High Life here and go back to Busch Latte after that.
Yep.
But I moved to Chicago. I was a military brat, 26 years U.S. Navy. My dad, and we bounced around as a kid. I moved 7 times before I was 11, and went to school in Texas at a small college there called Baylor University. And I got a job in 2000 when the world was ending at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And after a couple months doing that, I go, I don't want to do this. I want to be a trader. So I started, the internet had just come out. That was kind of a cool thing, if some of you guys remember that. And people had websites. So I started calling people and emailing them and sending my resume out. And I got a job in Chicago on the trading floor. And 20 years later, I'm still there. So that's what I did. But thankfully, I'm lucky enough to be automated at 37 years old. One of the crazy things about being a floor trader was technology started coming in side by side. As usual, I'm a day late and a dollar short. It's kind of the story of my life. But, you never stop hustle. So I tried to figure out life after trading. And I thought, okay, what can I do with all these skills that I've acquired over these years to learn how to trade options and trade products and trade them without actually owning the physical. And so that to me was always an interesting thing when I'd meet people from Chicago. I dated a girl from LA and she was from like Chip Flory's area, Cedar Falls. Sorry about the name drop.
That's all right. We like Chip.
But you probably could delete that part out if you need to. But I went out there and I met her family and they're like, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a floor trader. And he looks at me with these eyes. And I'm not from agricultural America. I grew up in cities my whole life or on the coast because my dad was in the Navy. And this was my first experience. And he said, you've been taking all my money all these years. I said, no. I'm just here to date your daughter. I apologize.
I'm here to take way more than your money.
Yeah. I like
your
her.
money in the
She
future.
likes me. She lives in LA. I live in Chicago. I think we can make this work. And needless to say, that didn't go very well. And I got asked to go home like a day later. It wasn't intentional. It was a family thing, but we didn't go very far. But that was my first experience, probably the original Snark Cattle Tour or something like that. But the quick and dirty was, so when I started in Chicago, I traded S&Ps and then fixed income. And every time I went to a new product, I found like the smartest people in the world. So I thought I got to go against guys that I know I can beat or try to. And again, futures and options offer unlimited risk. I've lost millions of dollars in my life. Please do not follow anything I say on this podcast. Yeah. Follow me on Twitter. Delete everything after you listen to this, but tell your friends first.
This is for entertainment purposes.
This is entertainment purposes, educational purposes only, to not do what I've done in my life.
Drink.
But that was my first experience of kind of the hostility and the disconnect between city and rural. Mm-hmm. Well, years later, 2014, so I kept moving. So in 2004, I started trading commodities. So I started in crude oil, kind of the ethanol boom and everything else started taking off, and it was a really fantastic place. And I went over to the corn pit, and I walked in the corn pit the first day, corn options pit, and all the guys that I had traded fixed income with and S&Ps were in there. And I was like, hey, guys, how are you? And they're like, because the CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, which now owns the Chicago Board of Trade, used to be very separate things.
Okay.
Right? They didn't really intermingle. It was kind of a rivalry, like the Jets and what's the other one, that West Side Story deal? I don't know. You'd meet in the middle of LaSalle.
Is it Benny and the Jets? What's the other side of it?
That musical thingy.
Yeah, I had to read that story.
Oh, West Side Story.
That's what he's talking about. What's the other side of it?
The Jets and the Sharks? I don't know.
Keep
Somebody
going off
Google
on
it. Anyways, so when I went over there, I was like, hey, I know all you guys. And I was trading corn, and I remember
Sharks.
The Sharks. Okay, so that's good. The memory still works a little bit. So I was trading corn options, and one of the first days in the pit, the guy goes, "Where's the $8 call?" And futures were at like $4.70 or $4.30, and $8 call. When was the last time we traded $8? What on earth are you looking for? And they're like, "Hey, where's the $10 call?" We're like, "We don't have that listed." They're like, "Well, list it." I'm like, "Okay. Do you obviously want to buy it?" I don't know. The $8 call is 20 cents, and this is let's call the $10 call 10 cents for fun. It wasn't even on the model, and people were buying this stuff with other people's money, and they had a bunch of ethanol had a lot of subsidies, and there were a lot of people that didn't know how to trade, but they were using government money. Mm-hmm. So that's how it started, and I was fascinated that I could sell the $8 call and buy the $4 call for essentially 25% of the price, even though I had $4 in it. And the guy leans over my shoulder, an old guy, and he goes, "Sonny, you don't have to hedge those." And needless to say, a year later, he wasn't in the pit, and I was still there. And that was the year we went to $8, and then all the way went sub $3.
Right.
Yep.
So talk about a ride. Mm-hmm. And then a big ethanol company went out of business because they said they were forced to buy corn at $6.50 because they had sold all the $6.50 puts, and the market had gone to $3. And so rather than change their inventory, they they just blended $6.50 corn and then lost all their money.
Yep.
I think it was El Dorado Energy or something. Again, that is just educational. Please do not sue me. I'm pretty sure they're not in existence anymore. But regardless, so that was kind of my intro into the grain world. And so from the grain world, that was great for a long time. And then I traded back and forth between upstairs and in the pit. And in 2011, kind of the corn market died. Mm-hmm. And so a couple of my buddies traded cattle. And this is where the story gets interesting.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I go over to the cattle pit, and this guy I volunteered with in the inner city, and he's like, yeah, I'll teach you a couple of rules, trading cattle. And I said, okay, what are they? Hit me with it. He goes, these are time-tested. I have lost more money than I ever care to admit doing these two things. Well, number one rule of trading cattle was never, ever, ever sell August feeders. And I said, okay. And he said, the number two rule, and some of you might know this one, is June cattle always suck. Because people are all excited and bullish coming out of the winter and whatever, and then you get into these big numbers, and then you can't give them away like today. My apologies to the guys listening that know what I'm going through. And that, other than like 2014, that's all pretty much worked. August feeders works almost every year. And so I started learning that. I started trading cattle, started trading basically the volatility between corn, cattle, and feeders. And I did it in a way that people hadn't thought about it. And it was a great market for a long time. And then they started to close the pits, and they'd been working on this for years. When I first started, I went upstairs in 2003 thinking, this is all gone. Europe hasn't had a trading floor in 5 years. Like, why would this exist? Like, it's just all going to be electronic. And so I'm really lucky that I made that decision. It was a bad decision for me financially because the pit was still rocking. And then the commodity boom, it really exploded again. I mean, I still remember sitting in the soybean pit and they were going, where's the soybean $30 call? We're like, we're $14. Again, it was the same kind of conversation. Yeah. Why don't you try and trade the $20 call first?
Yeah.
And it was a great way to cut your teeth in a market that had a ton of volatility, and then that volatility died. And so cattle started rocking, and I went over there, and then corn exploded again. So I was trading both, and again, I am not a professional. I am experienced. I think that's what I can say legally. Mm-hmm. I did hold a seat on both exchanges at the same time, and there's only 7,900 of them total, or some number like that. Yeah. And that doesn't qualify me as a professional. Make sure you guys understand that. Mm-hmm. Futures and option offer unlimited risk. Doing anything I say or do, you're liable to lose all your money and then some. I just traded these products my whole life without ever owning them. And again, I just lost more money, and so apparently I somehow survived.
How do you make money trading on the trade? Like if you're a trader,
buy low, sell high.
I understand that, but are you using your own money to do this, or are you just trading other people's stuff and then you just take a cut in the middle?
Yeah, it's a great question. I traded for a prop firm, a proprietary firm. We basically traded all their money.
Okay.
Right. So we each had an account with their money in it. They pool their money, and they have a bunch of traders. And so you live or die by the amount of money you make or lose. So I feel like it's important to answer this before people get too invested. I've been fired 17 times. At least I lost track there. And I've been rehired by the same firm four different firms twice. So that's got to be some sort of a record.
It's like a revolving door.
Yeah, well, it kind of is, because you're only as hot as your next trade. Right, I'm sure there's probably some brokers or other people listening to that, and people love you or hate you. I mean, that's trading. That's one of the things I loved about it was you eat what you kill. If you don't kill anything, you're not going to eat. So if you see me and I'm skinny, I haven't been trading very well.
I haven't been trading very well.
That's pretty good. Let's take a quick break here and taste the first beer that we have on the episode. So thank you, Dole Distributing, for providing us with this can that looks ultra familiar.
Today we just got some good old Busch Light.
Since 1955, Busch has delivered beer with refreshingly smooth taste and crisp and as cold as the mountain stream. Busch Light brewed longer to create a lighter body and fewer caloried beer, delivering the classic taste we all love.
What's the IBU on this?
It doesn't say. It's 4.1 alcohol by volume.
Wait. Hold on. This podcast is sponsored by Busch Light.
Sponsored by Dole Distributing.
Dole Distributing, who
well, God bless
Busch Light.
them.
Yes.
I mean, American heroes right there.
That's what all that we just.
Oh, the
recorded
Ripple
another
Coast
one.
and the
We
other
had-
stuff. Yeah, I'll get into that later.
Yeah,
I'm going to stay coherent though.
so they
for
bring
the
us
show.
a different beer every week, every 2 weeks.
They're also the ones that wrapped Corey's combine with
They
the Busch
are.
Light logo.
Made a Busch Light combine.
Oh, that's when things got nasty on Twitter. I remember that.
Yes.
People got jealous.
Yeah.
Yes.
I went out to a Snark Farm tour last couple weeks ago and brought the corn can. It's so great.
Oh yeah.
I love it. I'm like, there is nothing else to buy.
Yep.
Like, there are no other choices here.
I know. I think we're still working through inventory we had before that, but you can buy it over at Casey's right
Yep,
over there.
right over there.
Yeah, nice plug for Casey's. Casey's, you should sponsor this if you're listening.
I don't know. I'm kind of mean to Casey's on Twitter sometimes.
Yeah.
So
I don't mean to be.
Yeah, we
but-
got into it about the pizza deal.
it's
Yeah,
hit or
dude.
miss.
I love it.
And that was you still can't take your coffee mug in and refill.
There's signs everywhere.
And they're like, oh no, we're going a different route. Well, you charge me like $1 for the cup and 70 cents for the coffee. Like, why can't I take my own damn mug in there?
Just like that cotton candy we were just talking about.
Well,
So you trade cattle, you've traded corn and beans. Have you traded, is it Dogecoin?
I have. In fact, I am going to a wedding after this. Some Twitter peeps, if you guys are on Twitter, Jacob Reinecker and Grace Hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like the original Twitter couple. And so I got them this gift. This will come out after the wedding, right? Or
Monday?
When's
yeah, the wedding Saturday.
Oh, yeah. This come out.
And I brought them a Dogecoin Litecoin miner
Oh.
and a battery. Now, I spent Bitcoin on this, and I bought these back in 2017. Never opened them because they didn't come from China for like another 6 months by that point. And I used crypto to pay for it, thinking I was smart, right? This is my hedge against prices going down.
Yeah.
And I spent, I don't know, 2 Bitcoin on buying like 5 or 6 miners. And now that actually those miners are worth like $100,000, but you can get them on a certain auction website for like $200. So it's a gift,
Yeah.
right? And it's a really expensive gift that means a lot to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to them, I don't know so much, right? But then Dogecoin exploded. And it's pretty funny because the Dogecoin guy came back on Twitter and he's like, wait, what just happened here? Like, I created this in 20 minutes. It has zero utility whatsoever. This will get the Dogecoin Mafia on me on Twitter. I really don't care. I have multiple miners. If you guys want to reach out to me on Snarkosaurus, I'll make you a real good price. But, yeah, so I got them a Litecoin Dogecoin miner, which mines on the same algorithm and verifies transactions and stuff moving on the blockchain and all that stuff. So we'll see if they plug it in and have fun with it. If not, then I guess they'll just enjoy their honeymoon.
Oh, yeah.
It's a thought. that
But
counts.
never been opened.
Never
Wow.
been open.
Yeah, because by the time I got them, they lost money. So why would I ever plug them back in? And then had I known, because you could mine hundreds, I mean, I don't even remember the numbers, but it was tens of thousands of Dogecoin a day.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was going to 50 cents.
I know.
Right? Otherwise, I would have been mining it the whole time and I'd be rich right now. And then we'd all be doing this podcast from a plane.
Right.
That would have been awesome.
That would be fun. So
I mean,
there's
Dave's,
still hope.
Dave's office is great, but
Yeah,
that would be
yeah.
even
No,
sweeter.
this is a really nice, and this is also an Airbnb on the side. Shameless plug. This has literally the nicest bathroom of any office I've ever been into. I don't know if it's on Country Living or whatever that one, Southern Living, but unbelievable. Who
Chip and
designed
Joanna.
that?
Chip and Joanna came here once.
So
No.
I joined
Grace.
Twitter in 14. I followed Snark from pretty much the beginning, but it was probably 2016 or 17. When was the big Bitcoin when it went from 1,000 to? Well, that was when I probably got the balls enough to actually reach out to Snark and we talked crypto just a little bit. He knew a lot, I knew little, and we talked about it slightly. But I am sad to say I had like several 100,000 Dogecoin at one time as a joke, like trading.
Well, yeah, I
it
mean
out of
that was
something.
like $10.
It was like yes, it was.
You could tip people on Reddit, which is why I have some somewhere.
Yeah.
And I only had like 10,000 of them, so call it like $50.
Yep.
And then you just tip people on Reddit like 50 Doge, 50, it was kind of fun.
I'm pretty sure I switched over to like Cryptopia or something and bought
Yeah,
like
and then they
Bitcoin.
stole it all.
I bought like Bitcoin ZBT or I don't know, Bitcoin private. And then they went freaking hell. And then I was like, I'll just trade out that to Doge. And I just, it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then finally transferred that back to Bitcoin or, whatever. But
Yeah, I had a bunch of money at Cryptopia too, and then they did an exit scam, and then now I can't log into it anymore.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter. That's kind of the recycling all the old tricks, and it's like I'm watching my life in a simulation. And everyone's like, oh, this is the next new shit coin. I don't know. Can I say that?
Yeah, yep.
Okay. This is the next new shit coin. It's called Shiba Inu. I'm like, wait, that's Dogecoin, and it's the exact same thing. It's like somebody else started it and said, buy it. I'm going to do Snarkcoin one of these days, but I feel bad if it doesn't actually have any utility. So that's my problem with it. But we can talk about crypto and blockchains in another podcast.
We can tie it to the carbon credits, like I told you.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be cool.
Oh, wouldn't that be a rabbit hole to go down?
Oh.
Well, I got a different one real quick. If you took all the data that's being taken off your combine and you put a protocol layer over the distributed ledger, which is what a blockchain is, okay? And you put that over it, and then anytime anybody like Nas or whoever wants to pull your data or wants to know what you did on your farm, they'd have to pay you. That's the big genius idea I've had since 2017. So if anybody out here is listening that's a blockchain developer, contact me or just build it yourself. Just make sure you give me credit on this podcast.
Yeah, we're going to approve
think
now.
about it.
It's going to come out
You
on
own
this.
your data forever.
Yeah.
That's the way it should go. And that's the way it's going to go.
Yep.
And that's why it's so disruptive. So
Isn't that what Garth Brooks did with his records? He didn't want to sell to the company, to the record company, so he said,
labels?
I'm keeping all the labels to it,
right.
and then all of a sudden he can sell to Walmart all by himself or whatever, and he like totally rocked the world and made millions.
He's made all the money.
All the monies.
Yeah.
all the money.
All right. Take a break. I'll get the pizza. I'll be right back.
How was that? I don't know.
Probably don't need to.
I was telling Dave.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. We have never done that before, that early in an episode. That was not a pee break. We did pee,
Yeah, several times.
but that was a food break.
Pizza break.
Pizza break.
I feel like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
With your hiccups. This could be interesting.
All right, and we have lost Dave.
We lost Dave. Dave, yep.
R.I.P.
Bless his heart.
R.I.P.
Bless
his heart.
Headed to Eastern Iowa, man.
Oh, jeez.
Doesn't
We have to
stop.
throw out disclosure. That Dave's not really dead. Dave had to go someplace else. He's got a lot of things going on.
Yep,
So.
100 mile an hour, and he had to get to an auction first thing in the morning in Eastern Iowa. So, yep.
Absolutely. But we're here with Snark.
Yes, and Snark is on a tour of sorts, headed to a wedding, but you have done a cattle tour for quite a while, and that's one of the things I first saw you doing. What's all that about?
Yeah, so I did the farmer tour before that, and then they started closing the floor. They decided to close night trading for like the overnight hours for cattle because it's like, what do we need to trade feeder cattle in 2 a.m. At limit up,
Yeah.
and then back lower the next morning kind of thing. So the last day of feeder cattle night trading, I used to have a screen that I'd pull around next to the TV, and whenever my fill sound would go off, I'd try to find what just happened. And I found this group out of Wisner, Nebraska, a guy named Blake Albers and company. I call them the Wisner Mafia. And I started to figure out when they were trading, because I always thought it was like the Chinese. It was like 8, 9, 10 p.m. And it's like, blammo. My fill sounds are going off all the time. And I made friends with Blake, and I said, hey, are you guys at Rumors now? And that Rumors is like their local bar.
Yep.
And he's like, yeah, how'd you know? I was like, well, my fill sound started going off, so I was just checking to see if it was you guys. So they decided to end night trading, and I was like, I got to meet these guys.
Yep.
I don't know who they are, but I've been on some of their trades, just on the other side. I could just tell. And cattle used to be so weird at night because there was nobody in there making a market. Why would you? And, I was a junkie, so we traded it. And I decided on the last minute to get a flight at 1 p.m., and this is 2014 when everyone was getting rich in the cattle business. And Justin Beller said, if you come, I'll get you a limo from the Omaha airport. I was like, I'm not worried about that. I've heard of this thing called Uber.
Yeah.
And I got a flight, and I set a next flight for like 8 a.m. the next morning. I figured I'd go one and done, just see what Rumors was all about. I roll in. I walk into this bar, and I know to go in the side door from Snapchat from Blake. And I walk in, and it's like the music stopped. Everybody just looked at me like, who's this guy? Now, this was probably my first really great trip to small town America.
Yep.
And Wisner's about a town of 1,000 people, feels like 1 million. And I was like, hey, do you guys know Blake Albers? And the bartender's like, are you the one that just called asking about him? I'm like, no. And they're like, well, they're at Jack's office. I'm like, who's Jack? Like, do you know where his office is? Can I go meet these guys? Because this is like a total dud. Like I've been warmed up. I'm tuned up. I'm all fired up. It's been like, on the plane, everything else. And I'm like, well, can someone call him? And then some girl was like, well, I know them. I'll call them. And they called, and then they came running across the street. And about maybe it was like 10 people showed up. And what was funny is when I parked the rental car out in front of Rumors, I was like, man, this place smells like shit. Like it was a summer, it was August, and manure is strong in the nostrils.
Yep.
And I said that to them, and they said, no, Snark, that's what money smells like.
Yeah.
And I think that was the moment I got injected in the back kidney with the disease, but I'm not totally sure. So we drank and had a good time and talked about cattle and the markets, and they were flying, and it was a great trade for everybody. And they said, you got to feed cattle. I'm like, no, I don't feed cattle, man. I just feed the paper ones. They don't die. Yeah. I literally said this and laughed at them. Then we got the bill, and then 2 24-packs to go for the after party. And I think the total bill plus a $50 tip was like $180.
Yeah.
And I think then I was hooked again. And then we went.
Because that's not the same as Chicago.
No. This High Life I'm drinking right now is like $6 there. And that's like the friends and family discount. I'm like, you cannot charge $6 for Miller High Life. Let me go on a rant real quick. The whole 12-pack costs $7.49. I'm just offended by that. I'll just drink on my front stoop and then come to the bar after.
Yep.
And so that just bothers me. And so I stayed at Blake's house, and then the next day we drove through the feedlot. And I don't know if I'd never actually been through a feedlot. And we drove through Herb Albert's feed yard, and in like the 20 minutes we were in there, like the market went limit down. Oh. So to this day, I'm still not allowed in their feed yard. But I said, hey, I got to go home. And they're like, you're not going home. Move your flight. And it was Southwest, so you could reschedule whenever back then. I was supposed to be gone 16 hours. I stayed 3 days.
Wow.
Went to a Nebraska football game, got the whole Nebraska experience.
Wow. You poor guy.
And I was like, wow, this is a lot of fun. I don't know what to say. And I've seen enough cattle now that I want to feed cattle.
Yeah.
And so I wrote a check and started feeding cattle. And that's how Snark Cattle Tour was originally came about. And then the best part is these banks. They're like, well, if you want to put up the $200 a head down money, you can feed some more cattle. Like, you don't want to see my finances? I literally don't have any more money than this $200. Yeah. And then the feed yards were like, well, you can leverage the cattle you have on feed against more cattle.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't have to sign any more documents. Nobody else has to know. And they're like, yeah. So I started feeding more cattle. And they were hedged on the board. So I thought, what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
Right? Now I own the physical, which I'd never owned before. And now I have the offset on the board. What could possibly go wrong? Mind you, if you listen to this or do anything, you're going to end up the exact same way I did. Futures and options offer unlimited risk. They're not suitable for all investors. You will lose all your money and then some. Okay.
Drink.
So about October of that year, I'd leveraged up pretty good. And then the call came, and they said, hey, Snark, your cattle are ready to go. They fed it 140 days, just like we expected, 4.2 a day. But we don't have a bid for you. And I said, wait. Where I come from, there's always a bid. Mm-hmm. Call me back when there's a bid. I don't want to accept this. I'm not paying to feed him another day, whatever. Guy calls me back a couple hours later. He's like, well, we don't normally sell to this outfit, but they're 18 under. I'm like, 18 under the board? The board's 136. I'm not selling these for 118. These aren't Holsteins. And he said, well, then we're not going to sell them. I said, all right, we'll keep feeding them. And I was like, I'll just feed my way out. No problem. Yeah. And then I said, when do you think they'll be back? And he said, hopefully next week. I'll never forget where I was. I was in Houston. And I was like, that sounds serious.
Yeah.
Well, 6 weeks later, they finally took them and then docked them 200 a head for the ones that were over 1,000 pounds, which they all were.
Yeah.
Because, they're amazing cattle.
Yeah.
And but it slows down their chain. I don't even know what happened. Anyways, I got the feed bill finally, and I already knew it was about to happen to my life and my life savings and everything I've ever done in my life. And they said, well, Snark, this is what they fed for, and this is how they performed, and that's what you bought them for. and that's what you sold them for, and this is the feed bill, and that's how much you owe at the bottom. And I said, well, that's a big number. How long do I have? And they're like, about a week. I said, all right, well, let me see what I can do. So cleared out my trading account, everything else, went completely broke. Drove Uber for 16 months because I didn't want to work for the man. I didn't want to go back and do another job. I was like, I haven't worked a corporate job in forever. I'm not doing that. Yep. And then I got all the way back, started building my trading account back up. And then in 2017, there was a snowstorm in Southwest Kansas, and I vaporized my account. I lost like $400,000 in about 36 hours. Ooh. And then I was like, well, then what? So here we go again. That's okay. I've gotten off the mat a couple times. That's kind of what I do. And I was like, well, I'm definitely not driving Uber ever again. And so I started doing insurance brokerage for a bit. And then end of 2018, 2019, I got this idea and I thought about it, and I bought this domain name called gfy.ag. Go farm yourself. .ag.
Right.
Well, at first I threw it up on a website and put Rob Sharkey on there. Anybody I could think of that was popular on Twitter. The hippie farmer. There was pictures. Like, I stole a bunch of pictures, and then Rob got too big for that. And he's like, you got to take that down. The overlords are like, I don't know who this is, and why are you on this website? Yep. And I'd never done anything with it since, but I always wanted to do this. And so I did brokerage for a couple of years, didn't like it. Started doing a lot more cattle tours, which was fun because I love to travel, meet people, hear their stories. And it's funny about the cattle business is all you have to do is tell them you lost a lot of money and you're in their club. Yep. At first they're like, you're from Chicago? You're going to take all the money. I'm like, no. I think it was one of those things where you sit down at the table, and this isn't against any of the guys that I ever fed with. They're all great. Still friends to this day. It was one of those things that you sit down at the table, a poker table, and in 5 minutes you can't tell who the sucker is. You're the sucker. Yeah. Uh-huh. And I learned a lot about basis and what it was like to be, to have ownership in something that you took risk or whatever, and the feeling was I should get more money for this. I took all the risk. How on earth are these cattle worth 118? Well, we're getting them out of Iowa at 104, and they're elephants, and they're 1,775 pounds, and we got all the beef we need, and it slows down the chain speed, so we're going to have to take yours in 3 weeks. Well, I ended up feeding those cattle, backtrack 6 weeks too long, and you got to pay the feed bill and everything else. And it was my first time going from paper and just a number to being real. And then I was like, well, as the world has changed, right? So trading has changed so much from guys like me or those boys in Chicago to computers. And I've been part of that. I've seen it, and it's evolved. And every year my risk went up and my profitability went down. And I wanted to change as the market changed. So having been automated from the job I actually did, where it makes sense if you think about it. Because before, when you made a trade in the pit, you had a runner, you had a clerk, you had like 4 people, you had a pit reporter, you had all these things when you made a trade. Now you just make a trade on your phone, and it all clears instantly. It's disseminated to the world. You don't need any people. And so it was really low-hanging fruit to be automated, and there was a lot of money involved. So that was kind of the first thing, and I actually feel really lucky, right? I remember saying I'm not going to be the last guy to leave the board of trade and be the janitor sweeping everything up. Like, when it's over, it's over. What I realized was a lot of people because as farmers or producers or cattle guys or whatever you do in production agriculture, you're already made a commitment to being long this product, right? There's a lot of time invested, blood, sweat, and tears. I don't have to tell you guys that. Yep. And I was like, well, I've traded these products most of my life. Maybe I can help guys at least see the way an experienced, what am I allowed to call myself? Not a professional, even though never mind.
You're experienced, you said.
I'm experienced. Yep. That doesn't mean I'm any good at this. I'll probably lose all my money again at some point. But it was a chance for me to think maybe I can help educate people on the way Chicago worked. And maybe you've been getting bad advice. Maybe you have a great broker, but most likely not. And you don't understand the mechanics of the market and how it actually works and how it's supposed to integrate with your operation. So I took that route. I did the brokerage deal for a while, and I found the biggest problem with it was you get a bunch of people that call you every day, and they want your advice, but I can only be on the phone with one person at a time. There was no way to scale it. There was no way to give anybody my opinion. Like, unless I was talking to you directly or we held some conference call in the morning or something like that. And so this has always been in the back of my head on how to do this or what I'm trying to do now. And so I was talking with a buddy of mine who is a close mentor and, been really successful in agriculture and continued to take risks, kind of like the other podcast guys said. And, there's some element that I think why it resonates so well with farmers and cattle guys and stuff is you put your money where your mouth is, right? You commit to growing a crop. There's a lot of things you can't control, but you're running a business, right? You're an electrician, you're an equipment guy, you're managing labor, you're buying seed, you're marketing, you're doing all these things. But the time and time again, when I go out to the country, and I've probably made over 100 stops, is marketing is really difficult. It's super emotional. And that disconnect to the emotion is the problem is once you've committed to go long a product, you ride or die with that market every day. I mean, it's up today, so everybody's loving life. Tomorrow might be down and you hate yourself. Like, why didn't I sell yesterday? And so the challenge is divorcing yourself from the decisions you made before to your decision today. But if you think about it, a farmer that's held on, and this is actually a great example, a farmer that's held on to their product since last November when the world was ending and we have unlimited corn and you're never going to make $1 and you're looking at your balance sheet going and your banker's yelling at you and whoever else, you said no. And then what happened? The market forces started taking over and they go, we need your corn. China showed back up, the election's over, whatever you want to get into, but there's a lot of odd timing with a lot of this. And all of a sudden China needs unlimited corn. So were they just starving their people for all these years? I don't know. It's China, right? They apparently don't have any deaths from COVID, but yet the whole rest of the world's on lockdown. I mean, not to get tinfoily on this, but it's just very odd. The whole deal is super weird. And now you're getting paid. You're getting paid for your decision every day by not selling. And then you're like, well, then the market's telling me I'm right. Well, that's not necessarily true either. The market moves up and down. And the thing about this that most people don't know, and I don't know the statistics exactly, so this is just fact check it, but a guess. 80 to 90% of all the trading now is computerized. It's just high frequency. It's just moving up and down. It has no bias. It has no brain. It's just doing whatever's programmed into it. And that's what moves markets now. Now, that's not what actually keeps them where they're at, right? It's end users. It's people that need the product, whether it's cattle, corn, beans, hogs, whatever. But market forces will push things to extreme volatility, like just to force people to sell. Like the market doesn't care about your P&L. The market doesn't care about you as a person. They don't care about how much time you've spent. They need your corn. And today it's $7.50 and tomorrow it might be $6.50. Well, that becomes a very emotional thing when you're staring at it every day. And it's like, I always describe it this way to people, like, think about this. The girl you've asked out 100 times that said no every time. Then all of a sudden you lost weight, got new clothes, have a better attitude. For whatever reason they didn't like you, now they sort of do. They've said no to you so many times. How do they finally change their mind and say yes? And I feel like that's an analogy that kind of works well with grain farming is whatever you have left of old crop right now, well, I'm not selling it. I sold some for $4, $3.70, whatever. I might have sold some at $3.30 on the low because I needed money. But now I'm going to get $12 for the last 10,000 bushels because that's going to get me an average price of $4.
Average up.
Yeah, right. And in the same way, guys that are disciplined that have been more forward have sold corn at $4.20 for a new crop and $4.50. And this might be the year it goes to $10. Now it might go to $0. Just so you guys hear that. I said that also. I said corn is probably going to $0.
It could go negative.
Well, we learned that a year ago. That was like a year ago when crude oil. And I had a guy call me. He goes, wait, what does that mean? That's negative $37 a barrel. I'm like, well, it's 1,000 barrels of oil, so they're going to pay you $37,000 to take oil. He's like, well, I got 8 trucks. 1,000. I said, well, you should drive those down to Cushing, Oklahoma right now, and you should buy futures. And he goes, let me call my uncle in Cushing. And he's like, nah, it's this and that. By the end of that day and the next day, we went. That's actually such a great example. Think about how stupid that is. I had one guy go, I'm going to buy crude oil at $0. And I was like, I don't know. It sounds like a good idea, but knowing how this works, it might go to negative 5 million before that and then right back. I mean, look at Dogecoin at 50 cents. That's all you need to know. Is computers drive the price no matter which direction it's going. They're capturing the momentum. So much of trading now is like physics and momentum-based algorithms. I mean, look no different than last week. We had corn go limit down. Then the China news comes out. Then it breaks another 20 cents, comes right back. Next day, it's limit up.
Yep.
Next day, it's higher. Then it's over the weekend, and today it's limit up.
Yep.
Like, that doesn't even make sense.
Nope.
You didn't need to go 660 to 688 back to 660 to clear all that grain. But that's what happens. And so people make decisions emotionally based on their last information. And
sometimes not even good information.
Correct. Half the time it's fake. Yep. Or somebody front ran that, knew that news was coming out, shorted it, and then covered it on the lows and then started buying it the other way. And now everybody's caught selling it on the lows, and now they get margin calls back the other way. And that's what you saw probably today. Well, you got that higher, drier, wetter forecast, or hotter, drier through most of the northern plains, longer range forecasts. And now it looks like, well, if you don't get any rain, we might have a problem here. And since we know where we're at from a carryout perspective, especially with beans where there are none, I don't even know why anybody's like 111 million bushels or whatever. That's like zero. And that's distributed around the country. That's like zero.
Correct. That's a 5-gallon pail here and a 5-gallon pail there. Yeah.
Right. And so who knows where it might go this year? But that's why you farm. And this is why I should be on the Farm4Profit forecast next. Shameless plug. But the thing is with all this is like, I don't know where it's going. It might go to $20. It might go to $8 first and then $20. So I started talking with a data scientist in Chicago who does predictive analytics. And we started talking about this, and I said, do you think you could make a better trading algo than I can trade? And he's like, of course. And he was so confident. He's 29 years old. He said, this field didn't even exist 7 years ago.
Yep.
And I said, well, I doubt that. I got 20 years experience, and then, puff my chest out. And so I said, all right, let's see what you can do. And so we got some of the data. We started this about a month ago, and we've been building an algorithm.
So this is fresh.
Oh, yeah, super fresh, like just out of the womb fresh. You rinse it off, and it cries for the first time, and you're happy about it. And, you're handing out cigars to everybody because it worked for 30 days on a test, and then I'd start putting it out on the internet, and people are just waiting for this thing to miss. Yeah. But then it hits WASD within like 3 cents. Then the limit down day, the next day, it predicted higher. And we went straight down off the open. And the high of the day was like a penny off our prediction. And it closed like 3 cents off. But I was like, wow. And all that is I think it's measuring some sort of volatility component. I don't even know what it's doing. I'm shooting you guys straight. We're still building it. gfy.ag, sign up, go farm yourself. And the idea behind it is to educate people that all these ways we used to look at markets and the way we used to think about them, those are all lagging indicators, right? If so much of the trading is driven by computers.
By the way, CNBC on the 14th of May said less than 10% is not handled by computers.
Really? Okay, so great. So that's why I didn't want to misspeak.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty high. And so what that means is the farmer who owns the product, the elevator who's moving the product, and then the end users who's buying the product is the rest of the 10%. Yeah, speculators are what, 5% maybe? Yeah. Some number in there. It's tiny.
Really small.
Yeah, and so where we were on the floor, we were that original computer, right? We were just the grain elevator for options or whatever. And the way it is now, like we never traded like 40% of the volume. A lot of times customers would trade with each other, all kinds of stuff. But now it's driven so much by what we refer to as bullshitters in the pit. Like I was always calling myself a bullshitter. Like I don't own any of these products. I don't even know what they are. What is yellow number 2? Yeah. I actually thought the corn I was trading in 2004, 05, 06 was literally like the corn you eat at the store. I had no idea what it was used for. Yeah. I knew it was used for ethanol, but of course you just eat the rest. No. We feed that to cattle. I mean, this is how stupid I was. But it didn't matter to me. It's just numbers, right? And so people want to hate on me. Well, now you should hate on the computer, but the computer doesn't have a face or a name. It just has a firm behind it. And so why I started doing this is where it blew my mind is when I was trying to understand what we were doing, I was like, well, I need to give you the formula, how I look at the markets, because we're building the algo kind of how I used to view the market through a lens of we look at volatility first, spread second, and then flat price. Flat price is a lagging indicator typically. When I refer to flat price, I'm referring to July corn today or D's corn or whatever.
Yep.
It shows up in these other cracks in the cement first. So I'm feeding in. We have 7 data elements to our Snalgo, and we're only using one right now, which is closing price. That is incredibly inaccurate in a sense of we are giving it one data point a day over the last 10 years. And it's predicting price at, right now, our root mean squared error is 8 cents. So that could be 8 cents higher. That could be 8 cents lower. That could be, some days it misses, like today was one of our worst misses in history. My apologies. Again, do not trade off any of this. It's just an indicator.
Drink.
But we're still learning about it. And we're going to feed in other data elements to it eventually that hopefully we can narrow that down. But 8 cents when markets are moving 40 cents right now is nothing.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Right.
But as he was explaining to me, he said, well, do you ever use GPS? I said, how can you do this? And he said, well, you ever use GPS in your car? I'm like, yeah. He goes, do you know how it works? I'm like, of course. There's like a little guy in there that's reading the speedometer. And he knows the route, exactly the distance and everything. He goes, no, it's taking your data point on a magnetic field and constantly refreshing. And then it's taking every data point it has and mapping it. And I said, oh, that actually makes sense. And then he tried to tell me how we use predictive algorithms in a bunch of areas of our lives. And he started explaining examples like flights and this and that. And
I think he said to me, how your iPhone or your smartphone predicts what you're going to say next, what word you're going to say next.
Google.
What
that's
phrase,
actually where they
what
were designed
sentence.
for.
Typing a Gmail message out.
Yeah, you literally just hit over, and then hit send.
Yep.
That's why I don't remember anything I said to you.
You just-
like
just-
none of the texts we've been exchanging, Corey, is like it's literally just a predict.
Apple's got this.
Yeah, say this
I
back.
believe in
Yeah,
you, Apple.
Send it. Send it. So as I started learning that, he's like, well, these are the similar types of algorithms that work in a lot of different ways in different fields. And it's much more challenging in those because you have to figure out sentiment. Mm-hmm. So it's like reading a tweet and not just the likes or whatever. It's what people respond to that. Is that a positive or negative? And then is it a 1 through 5? Is it a 4.5? Is it a 3.5? And so what it does is it maps all the data and then looks for that in the data set. And I'm like, well, that sort of makes sense. But how could that work?
Yeah.
And so as I learned that, not to get too technical, and you can edit all this out, the point is computers are coming, they rule the world.
Yeah.
And what we started is a lot of fun. And then the goal with it eventually would be for people to see it and then make their own decision, right? Like I know as good as anyone, and I'm sure you guys would echo this, is, farmers are very independent people, right? They want to make their own decisions. They're growing it. They have to live with it when they sell it. Well, just make your own decision, but here's an extra data point, right? It's like when you look on a flight and it says this is historically a good price or a bad price. Well, that's just information I need to know. Should I wait? Should I just buy or cry right now? Or, is it somewhere in between, or can you send me an alert? That kind of thing. So eventually what I hope to have here in the next 5 or 6 weeks is where you have your own dashboard, right? With your grain on your farm. And hence why it's called Go Farm Yourself, gfy.ag, shameless plug, is you see your real-time P&L. And I think that will be emotional for people at first, but they'll start realizing, like on days like today, how much money they just made.
Right.
And maybe just clip off a little bit. I'm not telling you what to do. It may go to $1 million if you work with a broker and they're professionals, not just experienced. They can help build you a strategy to keep owning the upside or something. This is why people should work with professionals if they want more of that. But there's a lot of people out there that just deal in physical grain. Like I've always heard this, and I don't know what it is exactly, but I know most farmers and producers don't use futures and options.
Correct. Actually, we just had the episode that came out Monday was with Tommy Grisafi, and he stated that it's less than 10% have a futures and options account.
Yeah. And so... yeah, good old Tommy from the corn pit. Tommy used to stand near me. Tommy's a broker, I believe, and maybe he traded his own account as well. But I know Tommy from way back, and that's exactly right. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to give you all the professional ways experienced ways, ways that you would do that. Just here's the price on the futures board. Here's a prediction, whether or not it's right or not. At least it's just one more lens, right? The way I think about it is this: when you go hunting or doing something like that, I want to give you a rifle that shoots straighter and further, and is a more consistent shot. You still got to raise it up to your shoulder, look through the scope, adjust for wind, slow down your heart, and pull the trigger. And ideally, what you'll be able to do on this dashboard is you'll be able to take it as detailed as you want or as not. But one thing you can do with it, you can literally submit an order from your dashboard. So it'll route to the back-end gateway that routes back to your elevator, and then your elevator will either accept it, reject it, or put it in an offset in the market, a target order. And then when that gets filled at the CME, it comes back through to let the elevator know and let you know.
So I think there's some people doing that, like the back, the sales and that stuff, and you get your harvest profits who have the P&L and all that kind of stuff. So like there could definitely be some synergies or some people you could possibly work from, or maybe you got to build your own. But I'm seeing it as like, if I'm Vegas, like if I'm the casino owner and I'm happy with 51%, right? If I can win 51% of the time, seed companies are, boasting we win 70% of the trials with this hybrid across. Like if you can win over 50% of the time and get to 70%, and be within 8 cents of the market either way, like hell yeah. Well, I can make money doing that.
I was just thinking about today. So you're 8 cents off. So what? If you're 8 cents higher, we still thought it was going to go higher. You're 8 cents off the price that we made today. That still told me it was going up today.
Or if you just win more times than you lose.
Yes.
Right?
Well, it's both and, right? And it's something for everybody, in my opinion, is last week we did really well. We predicted the right direction every day. We didn't predict the distance. This week, so far, we're off to a bad start. But we did a one-day out prediction, which was actually 4 days of weather.
Yeah.
And we haven't put weather data into this yet.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're like 1/7 data points that you're eventually going to put in?
Yeah. We only have one in there right now.
Yeah. So if you're close now, what the hell is it going to be when you have all of them?
Ideally, it gets closer. It may get more confusing. Like, you go, and now there's too many choices. Like too many beers to choose from or something like that. But, yeah, no. So ideally, as we go across the process, but we're running an experiment here. So you add in one data element at a time so you can see where it breaks and where it doesn't. If you put them all in together, right, then you won't know where to start.
Yeah.
So then you got to strip things out. You got to go backwards. And so we're doing this very scientifically, one at a time. And ideally, we'll put in weather. We'll put in all these other things at some point, and it'll get more accurate. And then where we're trying to go is we have 3 models running right now, and ideally we have a 1 day out model. We have what's called a 3 day out model, and then we have like an hourly model. Obviously, most people won't care about that.
Yeah.
But it's the same process to understand how our thing is performing. And so I just signed up. We put all our stuff in the cloud this week, and hopefully we'll be running 5 products: corn, wheat, Kansas City wheat. So not Chicago wheat, because it's not relevant, even though it trades a ton. I've never understood that. But corn, Kansas City wheat, soybeans, cattle, and hogs. Those are our first 5. Each product costs $200 a day in the cloud. So I'm going to be spending $1,000 a day. My team's incredible. I added it up on the way here because I was like, man, what if I had to pay these guys? Most of them are working, like we're moonlighting on this, and their collective salaries is like $40,000 a week. So I'm pretty lucky with the team I've got. And then, the hardest part was, getting the data, getting everything together, getting it up and running. We have a couple investors now, and hopefully we can use that money to create a better model that gives people better actionable decisions. Now, whether or not they could look at it every day and go, nope, not today, not today, not today, but at least they have a better idea.
Right.
It's just like when I get in the car to come here, it's like, well, do you want to drive through back alleys, get shot at, and do whatever? I can save you 5 minutes to this podcast. Or do you want to go the highway? And do you want tolls? And do you want this? Well, I'm like, let's just go the straight route.
Yeah.
You know, I don't feel like getting shot at on the way here. So I just took the highway route to Iowa. But that's, I think that's the goal behind it. The idea that people will then be able to, you know, kind of like E-Trade or Robinhood, if you guys know what that is, where you can now enter this for cash grains. It's coming whether I do it or not. Somebody's doing it, and I'm sure there's probably 10 other people on this podcast like, yeah, we're working on that. So that's the goal with it. It's been a ton of fun. My ethos on this with everybody is fail fast. Let's just keep moving. Let's just push product. If it breaks, like today, we missed by 40 cents. We thought it would be 5 cents lower, 6 cents lower, and it went up 32. And tomorrow's prediction is 15 cents. It's 13 cents off. So we closed 60.88. And tomorrow's prediction is 675.36 for June 2nd. So whenever this comes out, and we'll see where it goes. And you know, hopefully for all the farmers listening on this, it goes limit up, and for all the cattle guys listening on this, it goes limit down.
Yeah.
But somewhere in between, somebody's going to be right or wrong. So that's what we're doing. It's been the most exciting thing I've worked on in probably the last 10 years. And what it's helped me understand is, I think the hypothesis is right, that since computers are nonlinear, right, that's where my data scientist is a genius. His name's Jefferson. I said to him, I said, I need to give you this formula. Like, here's how I look at all these markets. Let's add in this, do this, and then subtract that. He's like, no, that's not how this works. It's literally just examining the data and then finding a pattern. And that's why I think it works, is because it's nonlinear, right? It's logarithmic. Like, it literally, it doesn't. I was shocked today, right? We're up 32 cents. I'm thinking it's going to, me as a trader, I'm like, let's load up, let's get rich, you know, buy or cry. That's, you know, it's kind of like crypto. And then it's like, no, tomorrow we think it's going to be down 13 cents. Now I have no idea what's going to happen, but I've watched this thing for enough already and seen the results and looked at it and go, wow, that's a lot better than what I thought it would be.
Sure, close enough.
Yeah, right? And you know, just like in baseball, if you're right 2 days a week, I mean, it's worth it. You know, you get in the Hall of Fame for hitting 400.
Yep.
I mean, 300.
Yeah, 300.
Nowadays, it's like 250.
You're definitely in the Hall of Fame with the 400.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where people got to understand what it is and not expect like, oh, yeah, well, it was wrong today. Well, it's going to be wrong every day. We've never actually hit it on the number. Well, I'm predicting this 24 hours out. There's no possible way this should even be remotely close to accurate. Right? And then you start seeing it, and you're like, well, that's a little closer than it should be. And that's a little closer than it should be. Maybe I'll just put this out on Twitter and see what happens.
But then Twitter's dying, and
Right.
you're
So
hardly
I'm gonna get on TikTok.
You're hardly getting in. Like, I've watched it because I think I was like the 36th follower or something like that,
Yeah, you were early, for sure.
and retweeted it, and like
And I appreciate
I think you only have like, I don't think last time I checked, like 150 followers or
270.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We nailed a day last week. So it's funny. Whenever we like nail a day, people just start showing up.
Really.
And then the next day you miss, and then nobody joins.
And while we're talking about Twitter, I don't think Blake Albers follows me, and I love his shit. So what's up, Blake? Come on.
Yeah, Blake, come on. Lot 279 Beef needs to start following a lot more people.
I always go on there and check for the tomahawks, because
Yeah, right. No, that's his best thing.
and they're sold out 100% of the time. Every time.
So actually, this is a funny story about that. Snark After Dark was happening this weekend. First time back in Chicago, and the city's coming back to life, right?
Yep.
They're dropping the mask mandate. They're not dropping it, but they ask you a question on the way in, are you vaccinated? And if you are, you don't have to wear the mask.
So you just say yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Disclaimer.
My body, my choice.
Yeah, exactly, right? And I said to the guy, I said, what does this do for you? He goes, I don't know. We're just following the protocol. I said, you'd be better off asking everybody if they have an STD and then marking those people. I mean, if you're thinking about public health, this would be a way better way to go.
Way better.
We're all going inside, and we're going to breathe recycled air for the next 4 to 7 hours. It doesn't matter if you're wearing – never mind. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a professional. I'm experienced.
Yeah.
But that thing drove me crazy. And so I went to the after party, which was by my house, and I was talking with this guy, and he works at this big restaurant group in Chicago, and he's trying to tell me about – top 5. So we got into top 5 steakhouses. I ate a lot of steak. I mean, eat beef. That's what it is. It used to be my license plate. And then I kept getting fined for not having a front license plate in Illinois, but whatever. The Illinois State Police isn't listening to this, are they?
No.
I don't care. Whatever.
I don't think we crossed there.
Yeah, beat it, nerds. So so we were arguing about it. I said, guy, you can't be a top 5 steakhouse in Chicago if you don't serve prime beef. Let me list you the top 5. And so we started arguing about it. I said, listen, your sides are great. Your ambiance is great. You're right next to the Googleplex. You get a ton of hype, but you're not there. Huge restaurant, which is super expensive real estate-wise. And he said, well, we serve Angus beef. It's not prime, but it's Angus goes on a different scale, which is also not true. Yeah. And I said, no, that's not actually how it works. I'm in the cattle business. And I said, but here, I'll give you a secret. You gotta try lot 279 beef, Blake Albers' deal. That is the best beef you've ever had. I go all over the country, and people used to give me beef, but probably not after this drops. And I eat a lot of great beef. I eat some bad beef, but I'll never say that. But I swear that is some of the best steak I've ever had.
I believe it.
And they're like, well, we'll do a test. The head chef likes it. He kind of runs the whole restaurant group because this is their premier restaurant. I said, all right, well, let's get him in on a test and serve his ribeye next to that garbage one that you guys serve and see which one they choose every time. So I'm pretty fired up with that. I'm going to Wisner, Nebraska. I'm going to stop and see Kelly Garrett, whether he likes it or not, first, because he's on the way, and he's like one of my favorite farmers. And he's just a businessman, and he's always thinking of different and interesting ways to do stuff. Then I'm going to Wisner. Then I'm going to Sale Barn, I think. Then I'm going to Hemingsford to see Mike Mannion. He doesn't know that yet. And then I'm going straight south to this wedding, and then I'll probably circle back. So hopefully by then Blake will have shipped some meat, and they'll have tested and they'll be like, yeah, this is the best product we've ever had.
That is pretty
right?
cool.
That would be really cool, don't you think?
Yeah, that would be sweet. And you wouldn't have it without Ag Twitter or social media. Like, how cool is that? Like, you wouldn't.
I know.
You would have,
that's why I can't believe Ag Twitter is dying.
I know.
Like, what are people doing on TikTok? Just videos? Dance videos?
Yeah. It's crazy, though, that it's not just dance videos. And let's take a quick little break here. So thanks to Dole Distributing for their support of this podcast. Enjoying Miller High Life today. Yeah. The favorite among bartenders,
do they
brewers, beers. I assume so. Brewing company. Somebody had to bring it to Casey's. Flagship beer since 1903. Crisp, easy drinking flavor. Would you agree?
Absolutely. In fact, the bubbles are smaller because of the way that
the bottle shape.
$6 in Chicago.
$6 in Chicago, $7.99 for a 12-pack at Casey's.
All right, we got that in there. But there are dancers. Sure, there are people that jump on trends, but the farm talk side of it.
Yeah, I got to check this out.
It's so much just telling your story. I mean,
I love that.
It reminds me of Rob Sharkey's podcast and the fact that everybody just has their own platform. Yep. And if you say the right thing, do the right thing at the right time, all of a sudden millions see you. I got dumb luck watching my father-in-law and an employee grain vac beans out of a grain bin. And just about 1 million people watch that.
Wow.
There's no reason people should have watched that, but you hit the right hashtag at the right time.
Made me want to do it. It's like, he can do it, right. I can do it. so
then you're just telling your story, and sometimes you try to hop on a trend to refresh the algorithm, but you know there are ways to put strategy into it, but most of the time, if you are a likable person and you have a good story, that's all it takes. I feel like a lot of people have transferred from Twitter. We were talking about a lot of our Twitter people that are on TikTok. They just transferred over and do both.
And I think I was talking to Jared McDaniel about it. And he didn't get it either.
Also great beef.
And he is on TikTok, although he's not using it to its full extent. But he's watching, learning. But I said, I think it's the closest thing you can get to being like in someone's thoughts, like in someone's mind.
Right. Sure.
Because it is true. Like if you let yourself and you don't care, like it's unfiltered and it's like that's because on Twitter it's words.
Yep.
Right, but then you're putting words with the visual, and if you let yourself go, it's your mind. Like it's in your mind.
And there's all kinds of TikTokers out there that are putting on a performance. Like this is a character that they are putting together, and it's not them in real life. But then there's also some really genuine people. I mean,
that's cool.
It's a cool mix.
So it's basically my Snapchat story every day, but on TikTok.
And
absolutely.
But mine's private.
It's for the short attention span. Yep. It's 15 seconds or less. You can go up to a minute, and now they're demoing 3-minute videos.
Yeah, I've got that option, and I haven't done one. I don't know what I would do for 3 minutes.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
No, that it is a fascinating phenomenon. I would say, I've I'm still trying to figure out how to rearrange the icons on my iPhone.
I'm telling you, if
On
you
the home
get on
screen.
there and you go like on some of your stories, just from Snark Cattle Tour, Snark Farmer Tour, and
Or Snark After Dark. That's
Snark-
where the real
oh.
action happens.
I mean, and I
I've done
don't know if
two,
you've ever
yeah.
seen Growing Corn, Tony Reed, 2020. He's from Illinois. He just gets on there and goes on rants. I mean,
I might have seen it because people send it to me
yes.
on Snapchat.
F this, F that,
Yeah,
blah blah
he's
blah.
pretty
You know,
funny.
yeah,
Yeah. I appreciate
And-
that.
yeah.
He's got his own opinions.
He does.
Right. But you meet him in person. We've had him on the podcast, and you meet
cool.
it, and you meet him in person. He's just a genuine farmer. You know, really what it
Sure.
is. That's an exaggerated persona of who he really is.
Yeah.
It just got likes and got follows,
And then the algorithm
people
showed it
shared
to a bunch of people. And
And
then
he
everybody,
threw both his middle fingers up to PC, agriculture and social media, and was like, I'm going to say what I want.
And that's what people want.
Well, and I think that's what's really cool about what you guys are doing too is the best thing about all this is Go Farm Yourself came out of an idea of doing all of these tours and meeting people, right? The benefit I have, a lot of people that follow me on Snapchat or whatever are city people. And they're like, what are you doing? Why are you on a tractor right now?
Yeah.
You were just in downtown Chicago. I'm like, this is what I do.
Yep.
And people encounter it, and then they get to know the divide. So you bridge some of that gap between city and rural just because you're so disconnected from the farm now. When we go in and buy groceries and whatever, I mean, this guy's trying to tell me, now granted, he's British, and I was born there, so I'm not going to go too hard on him. But he's trying to explain to me that Angus beef is not on the same grading program, that choice. I'm like, no, actually, it's all there. But he doesn't know that.
Right.
Because he lives in a city, and he doesn't know a single person in Iowa.
Yeah.
Or anywhere outside of the neighborhood and the restaurant, whatever. And so I think that's one of the fun ways that social media can bring us all together. I mean, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for social media.
Absolutely.
You
Yep.
know,
We
and
would,
it's like I almost came to his crawfish boil, and then
Yep.
somehow something happened, and I totally blew that because I love that the crawfish thing is fun because I
yeah.
went to school in Texas, and you get
We
some
got
of that
we got to
Cajun-
start it back up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, now that there's no COVID and we're all going
Yeah.
to be safe again.
Yes.
Thank God.
giant eye roll for those that can't see.
yeah, right.
So I want to hit on. We like to get the stories from our guests, but we also like to try and hit some current news events. So, with so much of this trading happening by computers, is this another hackable stance? And I think you can see where I'm going with the headline that came out in the last 24 hours and in the last 2 weeks, also with the pipeline. Just with so much of this being done by computers, is there a risk? You've got more inside knowledge than most of us.
So, great question. I was actually talking about that on the way here with a guy. And I said, listen, with what just happened with the cattle business and this hack, this company makes so much money killing cattle. There's no way they'd hack themselves or there's some sort of conspiracy here. Because it feels like in cattle now, there's like a train wreck every 6 months. It's like scheduled. So it's really easy to talk about risk management with every cattle guy now because you need it.
Yep.
And the timing of it's a little bit odd, but at the end of the day, these guys are making $1,000 a head killing cattle for an hour. There's no way anybody in the industry would try to take their system down. But the way the world's changing, since we're kind of covering all the bases here, is now that this is one of the negatives of crypto for sure, that it's unbanked. So now you can hold somebody ransom for a crypto payment. And then they can work that through the dark web or wherever to get rid of it and get money. That's not a slight on cryptocurrency. It's just a byproduct, right? And I think this is going to happen more and more, right? What I'm dumbfounded by it was you look at that one guy on Shark Tank, Robert Herjavec or whatever his name is. I don't know if you have to throw out disclaimers. But this guy made all his money in computer security. And 10, 15 years ago, I'm like, how could you have made all that money like defending networks and stuff? Well, this technology to defend all this stuff, and I don't know the back doors and the other things, but I built a full stack solution before. I'm building one again now, right? That those are going to be issues down the road. But like for big companies to not have invested in this, like that's just sloppy.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is coming. And I think where they found a weak link with that Colonial Access pipeline debacle is they have to pay. It has to get online. Now you're disrupting. And who knows? Is it coming out of North Korea? Is it coming out of China? Is it coming out of a Russian group? Is it coming out of a couple renegades, right? Having learned how to mine Bitcoin
Vatican.
on the dark web, it is a very dark place.
Sure.
You can go very, very, very far down rabbit holes that you never thought you could go down. That's actually how I learned to mine Bitcoin. And then I started to understand what Bitcoin was and crypto. And to me, I would hope that this serves as a wake-up call, right? Whether it's, the big four or Gavilon or whoever, they should be a sponsor because I just dropped them to like 1 million people. And now if you're in that local area and you've never heard of Gavilon, you might do business with them. But
We'll send the bill.
yeah, send him a bill anyways. Snark said Gavilon 4 times on the podcast. But I think all these people, hopefully it serves as a wake-up call, go, wow, we really need to invest in this. Obviously, I know how expensive developers are, but it's an absolute necessity. We cannot have we can't have food security. I mean, you want me to go on rants. Like you talk about how like 2 of our major packers are owned by Brazilian companies. Well, where's your food security there? Mm-hmm. Right? And I'm not, it's just something to think about, right? I know they blocked some Chinese firm from owning Ocean Power or something off the California coast. And there's, a big hullabaloo about whether or not foreign entities can own U.S. corporations. It's specifically in certain areas, I think it's really important, right? Like it's just a thing that needs to be owned by, and I guess you could have nefarious operators in the U.S. too, for sure. But it just seems like an awfully big risk for not really a reason. Now there goes your Gavilon sponsorship. But regardless, like to me, it's like, well, those things should be owned at least in America or an American entity where they're suffered to American laws for liability in the case of negligence or something else. What if it was an employee? I have no idea what the story is. It'll come out probably before this podcast gets released. But the point is, cattle were limit down today at one point or pretty close. And, that tremendously affects a lot of people that didn't have anything to do with any of this and has nothing to do with getting beef to your plate other than we need computer systems to run all this stuff. And so, to your point, on another level, another layer is somebody could put on a position and then do some sort of terrorist act, because I think that's what these are. No different than, they're very different in a sense of lost lives and like collateral damage, right? My apologies to people. I never forget September 11th or anything like that. I don't want to mitigate any of that, right? That's real stuff. I remember that. I'm lucky. I'm old enough. The guy that was just on the podcast was, 3, and he was in Holland.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember walking home from the Board of Trade that day thinking we were next, or the Sears Tower was.
Yep.
But I think this is the new form of like terrorism, right? Like we're going to disrupt economies throughout the world. I mean, I can't even imagine underdeveloped how vulnerable they are, right? And so now if you can start disrupting things, there's certainly ways to take advantage of that. And I think that is a big risk. That's something that we really need to have some honest conversations in. I don't put any faith in the government, really. It's like that bad girlfriend that you couldn't get rid of because you kept giving them one more chance.
Yeah.
And you're like, gosh, I should just cut this off. And maybe they'll make the right decision. No, we're going to stay on lockdown until July.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Texas is wide open.
Right. Oklahoma,
right?
Texas.
Iowa.
We'll say Iowa opened before Texas.
Right. Thank you. And then South Dakota never closed.
Yeah.
Correct.
And everyone's like, they're crazy. No. They've been practicing social distancing their whole life.
Future guest of the podcast, the governor.
Which
Christie.
one?
Christie. Yeah.
I'd like to be here for that.
Oh, you can't make promises like that.
Well, I would send this
guess.
clip as a promo.
That's right. I like it. I like it. Corey sent me a TikTok the other day just about the way militaries are advertising in each country.
Man.
And that was scary.
That is very scary. They compared Chinese military versus the Russian military versus our military and had ads, true ads from each one.
To recruit.
Yeah, sure.
They're recruiting ads. And, both China's was the best and Russia's was good.
Hyped you up. I want to join.
It made you
want
want
to join tomorrow.
It made you want to run through a brick wall and defend your country.
Yep, sure.
And then we get on there and it's like cartoons of, trying to be
diverse.
very diverse and just nothing about defending your country or anything like that.
The story about someone being raised
equality
by,
and diversity and being raised by two moms
and opportunity
and all this kind of stuff, which has nothing to do with
the military.
Your personal stance on those issues. It's just like that's not defending your country and
right. If you want someone to be psyched up to go protect your country,
and
to go defend your freedom, it's not a love story. I mean, great. Everybody's going to have a great story to that. But I tell you what, if I was to sign up for one, I would go into the Chinese military.
Interesting.
Like it was bizarre.
I mean, I'm a military kid, so I might go off right here. Yeah. But like my father, I shared this yesterday, was Memorial Day, right? And I lived on a Navy base as a kid in Jacksonville, Florida, and they were deployed to the Middle East. I think they've been at war for 9,000 years at this point. Yep. Somebody just fact check that. But it's pretty close. And they were deployed in the Middle East with Libya in the line of death in 1983. And in Jacksonville, they had two carriers, the Saratoga and the Forrestal. And they had all these little ships that surrounded them because the idea was their cannon fodder for the jets or anything. They could shoot them down before they get to the aircraft carrier, or they could scramble the jets or whatever. My dad didn't come home for 2 years. And it makes me so mad when people talk about, oh, we're so oppressive and all this other bullshit. Like, that drives me nuts. I moved 7 times before I was 11.
Yeah.
Right? My dad paid, a toll. My family paid a toll. My mom was a single mom, essentially. Well, my dad's out protecting our freedom. And one of the reasons that makes America great, other than we're amazing and awesome and innovative and never bet against the American farmer ever to get the crop in the ground in 7 days or less when they're 0% planted, they will do it.
Yep.
But the point is, like, one of the reasons we've been able to walk softly and carry a big stick is because of our military. Mm-hmm. We have more aircraft carriers than the entire world combined. Everybody calls them floating targets now with smart bombs and all this stuff, and I agree. There's some of that, and there's some weird stuff, but, we have subs deployed to North Korea just sitting in that bay at all times. Like, those people don't come up for air for 6 months. Mm-hmm. And we're sitting here going about our daily lives and arguing about Casey's Pizza. And when I was a kid, I wanted to be in the military too because, one, my dad was in it, but also, I mean, it made you proud. The few, the proud, the Marines. And I know there's some people listening here that have served, and I thank you for your service. But that's what it was about. I mean, you are going to serve your country. I remember the one that really sinks in every day, and I can't sleep at night a lot of times, is Pat Tillman.
Oh, yeah.
Remember this guy?
Yeah, I do.
So, for those of you that are younger, he was a NFL safety. He might have even been an all-pro, but he was on his way. And September 11th happened, and he and his brother enlisted like that day, and he wanted to be an Army Ranger. And he ended up getting deployed to Afghanistan, was killed in an incident in a valley in the middle of nowhere that no one will ever remember, right? About nothing, and didn't matter. But my father did 3 tours in Vietnam, and there was a real cost there.
Yep.
Like, and we've gotten so far removed from that because we've had so much peace, thank God. But it's one of these things, like, this is not a friend. Like, the military serves a lot of purposes. And I'm all for equality and everybody getting an equal chance and this and that. But the military is something that is very important to America's independence. It always has been. It probably always will be. And so that's where I think we need a little sense of perspective in culture, right? That not everything's fair. Life's not fair. And a lot of people get hurt in war. I have some friends in Israel right now, people I've worked with in the past, and there's a big conflict with the Palestinians, and this isn't a pro-Israel against Israel, but you've got people launching rockets from inside, like tent camps or what do you call it, refugee camps, at civilians. Well, that's when everybody's getting involved.
Yeah,
we need to solve these things, right? And one of the reasons we have such a voice on a global stage is because of that.
Yep. Yeah, it's freaking nuts. All this geopolitics and all that freaking stuff. Launching rockets at innocent people.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's like, but they've been doing it for years, hundreds of years too. And it's just nuts. Like, they just can't get along.
And now we qualify mass shootings as 5 people or more. Meanwhile, 59 people got shot in Chicago last weekend, and nobody cares. Nobody's heard about it. Nobody's done anything. And there were 11 mass shootings, i.e. 5 people got shot in one drive-by in Chicago, and that's a mass shooting. Now, that's not all that stuff's terrible.
It is terrible, yeah.
But, the way we label things now and have changed narratives. Like, to me, that's the real shame in journalism. I was arguing with somebody on Saturday about how we don't have like enough of this, enough independent podcasts telling people how it is. Like, we just need the truth.
We're not even telling people how it is. We're just getting people in here and talking. Everyone's got a different story, and like, make your own decision, right? But
that's right.
The cream rises to the top. You can kind of figure it out.
Well, at the end of the day, life's not fair. So go farm yourself, right? Like, make your own decisions.
Absolutely.
But if you do it the way Grandpa did it, he existed without the internet, and that's no disrespect to Grandpa. Grandpa used every tool available to him to be successful at the time. But now we got TikTok. So if you're not using TikTok to make all your decisions, I don't know what you're doing. Disclaimer, I'm not on TikTok.
Yeah,
I'm
China's
not going to
got
lie.
your data, whether you want it or not.
I just smoked some eggs on my smoker this last weekend because I saw it on TikTok.
Do you have them here? Because I love eggs. I will eat one. That sounds amazing.
Actually,
that's
they're
a
gone.
delete bird thing.
Well, it does delete Yardbird. Because if you eat all the eggs, then there's no more Yardbird.
Yeah.
Right, that's another thing. If you guys eat chicken, unfollow me on Twitter right now. Delete Yardbird.
Smoke the eggs, get rid of the chicken.
That's right.
But you're right. There are so many resources that you can put together now to help make your own decision. Just make your own choice. It doesn't have to be what somebody else is doing. You can follow a large group of people. I know we have some of the greatest listeners. I'm not just saying that to pump them up, but truly the people we've networked with and the guests that we've had on this podcast, you put their story together and you can get a really good idea of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's the other thing. That was kind of one of my hopes is, how like one of my favorite things in rural America is the coffee shop in the morning, and there's always like a pit boss, just like there was in trading. Yeah. One guy's always talking. Everybody's listening. I was never a big enough trader to be that guy. But there's a big farmer in there. He's telling everybody how he never loses. And then the other guy's like, well, I'm 30% sold. And then he starts thinking he's an idiot because that guy says he's 0% sold. Meanwhile, that guy's like 90% sold, but he didn't tell anybody that.
Right.
Right? And then it becomes such a group think model because you admire that person for their status or what they've achieved or where they're at. And you got all these BTOs. That's one of the things I liked about Twitter is,
BTO.
I thought everybody was a BTO. And then I realized all the big BTOs, like the real ones, they're not even on Twitter.
No.
Nope.
No, like, this guy, I was talking to W Dirt. He's pretty funny. You might have to have him on. He's in like North Dakota, South Dakota. I don't know. It's one of those. The Dakota. It should just be one.
Yes.
And he's like, yeah, that's my neighbor. He farms like 60,000 acres. I'm like, wait, what? Is that a real thing?
Yeah.
And it is.
Yeah.
I'm like, the biggest guys I know are like 10,000 acres, and I think they're enormous.
Yeah.
Right.
And then there's guys bigger than that. They don't need to be on Twitter. They don't need to do anything.
No.
It is fun making fun of BTOs.
They're on TikTok.
When they're really
right. That would make sense because they have all their time back. Because they got an army of workers.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're a slave owner. You got a bunch of sharecroppers working your land kind of deal.
It is. It's fun to see them put out their content, and they are regular people for the most part.
Yeah.
That just get made fun of all the time because of their size and scale.
I always say this, don't hate the player, hate the game, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have haters, you're not trying hard enough.
I think we were trying to define BTOs. Is it on Twitter or TikTok? And I think we decided it's not a amount of acres. It's a mentality.
Yeah.
It's a personality.
I mean, there's 5,000 acre BTOs, and then there's 5,000 acre non-BTOs, right?
That's right.
It's like
that's right. It is totally a mentality.
Yes. So.
And that's the negativity. Those we call those douche bros in
douche
Chicago.
bros. Thank you.
They could be making $50,000 a year, and it's the attitude.
Yep.
We must be trying hard enough. We got one of those negative reviews this last time, and
you know what though? It wasn't even a good negative review. Like the guy gave us 3 stars and said the guy was a douchebag, not us, the guest.
Yeah.
And he still gave us 3 stars. I'm like, dude, if you're gonna go full in, like give us 1. Come on,
I mean, go for it. He gave you 3 for production value, and then -2 for the guest.
Like, you guys were
as
good.
if that's control.
Yeah, you guys were good,
Right?
but that guy was a douche.
That's probably what's going to happen after I come on. My apologies in advance.
Boy, that guy was a douche, and I'm going 1 star this time.
Yeah. Well, Snarkosaurus really sucks. That guy's a 1 for sure.
Gosh.
So, what about guys and gals that we shouldn't be listening to? Is there any junk traders out there just completely full of crap, or is that a no go?
Oh,
No. Let's go there. I mean, why not?
We're punching people in the face.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. So I'll get into it with people every once in a while on Twitter, And usually if I'm nasty to you in public, I probably really don't like you, and I would definitely say it to your face.
Yep.
I had one guy, and this is why traders hate brokers, right? And then I became a broker, so I hate myself every night. So that's counseling. If anybody out here is listening that wants to do free counseling with me and be the ultimate project, I'm your guy. And because we always said those that can't do teach, and now I realize I can't do, so that's why I'm teaching people how it works. I just want to expose it. And I go around the country and I ask people a lot, like, well, what do you like about your broker? They're like, well, I trust him. I'm like, that's great. How do you know him? He's like, well, I went to high school with him. I'm like, well, I trust most of the people I went to high school with too. And I said, what don't you like about it? He said, well, he'll never give me an opinion. And this one will resonate with some listeners, I'm sure. And some people get nervous. And the truth is, I said, well, that's a great way to keep a client. You don't ever give an opinion. You can always blame them.
Yep.
And then you've got this whole contingent of talking heads of people that actually don't know they're smart, but their job is not to tell you what they know. Their job is to sell you on that they're smart.
Yep.
And they throw out a bunch of things like open interest and how this changed and come up with an excuse of the hows, whys, and whats. And in reality, that's not what's happening. But, they have influence. They have a media outlet. And we just assume you wouldn't have gotten to that place, right, if you weren't know something, right? We always want to believe somebody else knows something more than we do. And I get that. I get some of that. But just because you're on Yahoo News or this or that, or I remember there's one on CNBC, and I probably can't say her name because she'll probably sue me, but she's on there now.
That's okay. We'll cut it out.
Make-believe podcast. Everything's
it's all fictional.
fictional.
And she's on there now. And I had approached her when I did my last startup, Troopzilla, where people meet deals. It was like Groupon, but better, and failed miserably in a pile of flames. But it was a great story, and it's why I'm ready for Go Farm Yourself. And she said, well, come meet me out in the suburbs with my dad. I'm filming a pilot for my TV show. I'm like, what TV show? She's like, oh, I'm doing it on spec. I'm going to try to sell it to Shark Tank or The Apprentice or something like that. We staged the whole walk-in, everything. I met her, and she was like, well, buy 200 copies of my book. Because apparently book sales used to be the TikTok following or Twitter following. And I can honestly say this lady knows about absolutely nothing about like finance and whatever. And she's on CNBC every day now. And that's kind of the world we live in. Like if you have a face for radio like I do, you'll never be on TV.
Join the club.
Yeah.
Right? But, these good-looking people, guys and girls that have been selected by somebody to do something, and, and it's everywhere now, right? You can put it on websites. Somebody can create a following overnight if the right people choose it, but that doesn't mean they know anything.
Yeah.
And that's where I struggle with, like, there's so much bad advice given out there. And that's why then I see people going, well, I couldn't make money. I'm like, well, corn was $5.75. How'd you not make money?
Yeah.
Sell futures, buy calls, do something. Well, I've been getting bad advice. And that's the one that drives me nuts. I'm not going to name any names here, but,
just write them down.
Yeah. I'll give them to you as a list to put out later. But the thing about it is, like, I always say this about brokers is you either pay them way too little because they're really good, or you pay them way too much. There's really not much of an in-between. And there might be. I don't know. I certainly don't know the rest of that world. But I can tell you that the brokers that don't embrace change and embrace how the world is or don't learn about it and they're just going off their sales or whatever they're doing, those are not the right people for you because this world is constantly evolving. I mean, we got self-driving cars at this point,
We actually had sorry to interrupt here, but
No.
it just reminded me of a comment I had, or a couple of conversations I had with customers today. We had a sprayer that got hit on the highway by a semi, got assholed by a semi, and rolled the sprayer twice. So was it 4095? I can't remember what the John Deere model is of a sprayer.
Hopefully it was okay.
And the bigger one. So there's no deaths. I haven't heard the
that's good.
condition of the driver of the semi or the driver of the sprayer.
The sprayer guy's fine, walked away.
Oh, did he?
Good.
That's good.
Got ejected.
Oh, gee.
Sprayer rolled
On purpose?
Sprayer rolled 3 times.
Do they have an eject button on sprayers now? I've never driven a super
Didn't
sprayer.
have a seatbelt on. Like,
Oh, yeah,
ejected.
so that helped in this case.
well, I don't know if it. Apparently it did. He walked away. He was working today.
Well, I just drove I-80 here,
Yeah.
and a guy zigzagged around me, truck,
Yeah.
and then he had nowhere to go. So he went right back in front. I slowed down because I knew he was going to go right back in front of me, and then I went around him and then just went past him. And I was like, you're sitting 10, 12, 14 feet off the ground. You can see over my 7-foot vehicle and see that there's cars in front of all this.
Yeah.
You couldn't just slow down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he created like so much more traffic by trying to merge back into me.
Yep.
Right. So that this is one of the first times that I've had my local farm clients really talk about driverless vehicles and that type of technology, and they were all applauding it. That this is what we need in these semis. I mean, it was clearly someone not paying attention. Now, my in-laws live on a highway, a 4-lane highway, and their couple of semi-trailers have been assholed on multiple occasions. People just on their phones. Just don't see, sometimes sun, yes, you can blame, can't see a blinker because the sun's just right or whatever it is. But still, somebody was not paying attention, and the driverless technology would probably help.
Well, we have it on our cars, so that's like the algorithms we're using. So I have lane assist. Well, how does it work when you go around a curve?
Right.
Why wouldn't I just keep driving straight? It starts vibrating or whatever, and I was looking behind me. I drive a lot of miles a year, except last year. Even then, I drove 15, 20,000 miles. And I'm convinced I'm going to die one day in a fiery accident. But that's because the truck behind me is literally running on the rumble strips for like a while. I hit those one time, I'm back in the lane.
Right. Yeah.
Well, now my steering wheel vibrates to let me know I'm getting near the middle of the lane. And that's great because if I get distracted or something else, I got blind spot things. I got all these things. Those are all algorithms. But this truck was literally running on the rumble strips at 2 o'clock in the afternoon at 80 miles an hour on the last, lap of the Indy 500. And it's like, you know what? I'm just going to veer over, slow down, and let that guy go in front of me. Because he's clearly on his phone. He's sending nudes. I don't know what he's doing.
He's probably looking at him.
On Tinder.
Yeah, he's doing something, but he's not paying attention at all.
Right, he was waiting to stop at the lion's den.
Porn in the corn.
Oh, that's pretty good. See, I'm the opposite. That's when I would probably punch it to the floor and just get as far ahead of that guy as possible.
Well, it's I-80 death trap, so you can only go like one car in front of him. And then he's still going to catch up because he's going 95 on the rumble strips, not paying attention. What's the obsession on I-80 East real quick?
It was, even both directions was shut down, I think, in the last week from camper rollover.
80 East, though, not west.
80 East, and then I think a westbound one was.
Gosh.
Well, and then you get close to Newton. I was talking to Corey on the phone the other day, and this is the first time that I have seen interstate traffic get split going the same direction. So where that construction is, if you're eastbound, it says stay in your lane. The right lane stays on the original road. The left lane crosses over to the westbound traffic side.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
I think it's always east of Des Moines, and west of Des Moines. It's because it's people trying to get away so fast from Des Moines.
So they're doing that lane expansion. That's going to be done in what, like 2031?
I have no
It's
idea.
going to take forever.
Yeah, right. But it'll be great once it's done.
Sure.
It'll outlive
Until
me.
it's not.
Yeah, till you need more. But that's the other thing about driverless cars. Driverless cars are great because a lot of people are terrible drivers, especially in Chicago. I see this all the time. It won't really work until they're all driverless.
Right.
And they're all on the same grid. Then somebody hacks the grid and then we all die. But before that happens, it actually will probably be super safe. It is if you had, you had something like that. I don't know. I look forward to those days. I think that's pretty cool. The thing is that the people don't realize this technology is coming whether anybody embraces it or not. We have hit, and everyone's like, oh, Snark, you're so stupid. They said this in the Industrial Revolution. I'm like, no. They had like a machine that didn't take 3 people. Now it takes 1.
Yeah.
Now we got a computer that can do the work of, so data science is not new, right? There just used to be an army of people that built Excel spreadsheets that fed into other Excel spreadsheets that gave you a data point to make decisions off. Now a computer does all that. I talked to Jefferson. I said, Jefferson, you're 29. And when did this, he's like, well, the papers were written in like the 90s and it's on some research in like the 1800s, but we didn't have the computing power to make this happen. And we've hit this apex. And I said, the tuning you're doing on the GFY algorithm, Karen right now, which is our first one, because she always just tells you what happened after the fact and you're an idiot, is like, my apologies to all the Karens listening. And what a tough name, but never mind. Anyways, I said, do you think that all this tuning that you're doing to the model could be done by a computer better? He goes, eventually, yeah. Eventually, because he doesn't build the algorithms. He connects them all.
Yeah.
Well, eventually there'll be a program that connects all the algorithms optimally. And it will learn way faster because it can process way more information. We got to run experiments side by side to see which one's running the best and then tweak something from that into this original. Well, you'll be able to feed all that into a machine and it'll be able to produce, a week's worth of work in a day. And then a day into a minute. That's just what's happening. Like, I don't know what the world looks like for young people that are out there listening to this. They're probably on TikTok, so they're not listening anyways. But it has been so crazy in my lifetime to not have, when I moved to Chicago, I didn't have a cell phone. I had a home phone.
Yeah.
So how do you get a number from somebody at a bar with a home phone and then try to make a connection with them later? Well, I had a secret. I'll give this to everybody listening. This is one free tip. Tell them, walk up to them, give them a beer and say, hey, give me your number. Give me one shot to memorize it. And if I call, then it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Right? And they'd give it to you one time. And I had really good memory back then. Not so good now. And the first thing I would do when I walked off is write it down.
Yeah.
Right? It was genius. They're like, how'd you remember my number? I'm like, well, I have like 7 in here. I just dialed them all for dollars the next day. Said, hey, do you want to go out on a date kind of thing? But that was you. When you left your house, you were pot committed. There was no showing up late. You just waited.
Yeah.
Right? So if you weren't on time, that was a big thing. Now everybody's like, oh, I'll be 5 minutes late. I'll be this. I'll be that. I thought today was Monday. Sorry. I'll just text you. We'll have to do it another time. Yeah. No, you just showed up because there's people there waiting for you.
Right.
And just even that culture shift has changed everybody. Right? Now everything's in ish. The shirt I was wearing when I showed up is Kiss Me, I'm Irish-ish. I just thought it would be good. And then I found a clean shirt in the back. And so I put that on. But
you also have no socks on.
Also true, but I don't. Maybe we should edit that part out. I had one sock, and I'm not putting one sock on and then no sock in the other one. They're either both going no socks, or we're just not wearing them.
That's funny.
Tucked in cowboy boots with no socks.
Yeah, well, whatever. City
Cowboy
it.
snark.
City it. Well, I figured the boots would be appropriate. They've got cow shit on them from, going to feedlots and stuff like that. And I only have one pair. Everybody's like, you need a pair of going out boots and this and that. I'm like, cowboy boots are expensive.
They are.
You
do need to go up to that Western Edge though. That's. I bet you would like that.
What's it called? Western Edge. What's the exact address for the listeners at home?
Oh, Jimmy.
I'm kidding.
West of Ames on Highway 30.
Shameless pitch. Send this to them too.
No, we like Western Edge. They're good people.
I'm gonna be busy. The invoice guy's gonna be really busy this show.
I'm sure they got Hey Dudes. I got my Twisted X's there.
I need a shirt to wear to the wedding.
Oh, they got those.
But I do have my cowboy hat, thankfully, because that's the
good
most expensive thing I own.
Pearl snap.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. That's what I need.
Yeah.
I've actually been to, this is actually be the second Twitter wedding I've been to. The last one I went to was Charge Steer 99X. He's friends with Trey Cronin. I don't remember. Charge Steer 99. And it was out in the Black Hills. And I wore my cowboy boots and my cowboy hat and a suit, a seersucker suit. It was pretty popular. So while I was there, at the after party, I was wearing a Sesame Street t-shirt, and this guy goes, I got to have that shirt. I'm like, I got like 2 of them, so that's cool. I got it at like Target on the way here. And he gave me his Pearl Snaps shirt.
Oh, yeah.
But during COVID, I gained some weight, and it doesn't fit anymore. So I need a whole wardrobe of these. They're great.
I know. I need to get back to running and doing all that stuff. I've been taking that since planting started. I haven't been doing nothing. It's amazing how fast it comes back.
That's right.
It's just like, you used to run quite a bit. You
did.
You ran marathons.
I did. I ran a marathon once. I don't know why. I did it for World Vision to raise money for charity. We raised like $4,700, which I was pretty proud of. But I didn't run past 13 miles. I kind of gave up on the training about halfway through, and I was like, whatever, I've committed to this. We've raised a bunch of money. I'm just going to run until I die.
Yeah.
Like mile 2, I'm like, I'm going home. And then I just kept running, and I kept running, and I kept running. And then it was on Twitter, and then, I was getting fired up with that. And then at like mile 16, I was like, I can't feel my legs anymore. That's okay. They're still moving. Now I'm in a lot of pain at mile 18. I'm just not going to feel pain anymore. And that worked for like a mile and a half. Then we get to Chinatown, and there was like a whole group of like these Koreans doing Gangnam Style on the side of the road. It's like a big party, the Chicago Marathon. And then we turned south out of the city towards White Sox Park, and there's just no fans. and it was miserable. And then we turned left to go back over the highway, and this guy was like shots of like free beer. I'm like, for real? So I drank a beer, kept going, and then we were coming around the curve, and I'm just dying. I mean, it's like mile 23. You've hit that wall. I just looking for every patch of grass to lay down in. But I know once you stop, it's over.
Right.
Yeah.
And they had free Malort. I don't know if you guys have ever had Malort. Malort is a Chicago liqueur. I should have brought it.
Okay.
It's real cheap, and the only thing you can do with it is take a shot of it. And I had a friend that really liked it, and so it got me into it. And I was like, yeah, I'll take a shot of Malort. And they're like, what? So I did it, high-fived them all. So I got fired up with that. And then I started running, and my lungs were absolutely on fire. I mean, this stuff is straight gasoline.
Yeah.
Right? And because I was in so much pain, I didn't even think about my legs anymore. Like, I couldn't breathe. Like, it was just like my chest just exploded. I'm like, oh, my legs don't hurt anymore. I kept running, and that's, and then Trade Tracker 312, if you guys follow him, he was at mile 25 and a half, and he had a 16-ounce Miller High Life and a red Solo cup. I took a selfie with him, kissed his dog, and then kept running, and I carried that cup like the baby Jesus the whole way. I was high-fiving cops, the whole deal.
Yeah.
And then the best part about this was the last 800 meters, okay, they had signs up, 800 for the professionals that are like, you need to turn your kick on now if you want to try to win. Or as soon as you see that sign. And I thought it said, boom.
Boom.
But no, it was 800
meters.
Right? As I got closer. The funniest part about the marathon was I've just run for 4 hours and 37 minutes, and I've run 12 miles further than I've ever run in my entire life. And I'm like, the last 300 meters is 150 meters up a hill and then down a hill. It's murder.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't go on. I can't make it.
Oh no.
I just can't do it. I kept running.
Yeah.
But I was like, that once I got to the home stretch and I could see the finish line, it was easy.
Sure.
But that last 150, I was like, I don't think I can make it.
Just such a deflating feeling.
Well, it's emotional, right? Because it's like, I can't go on. It's too, because you just start paying attention again, and you disconnect. And I think if the marathon was 36 miles that day, I probably could have run it. But that last 400 meters, no matter what it was, is that same mental conflict.
That's crazy.
Like, I just can't go on. And then I finished, and I couldn't walk for like 2 days. And then I was like, I'm never running again. And the other day, I think it was Sunday, I woke up, and I was like, my hamstrings hurt. And I was like, what? Did I have a nightmare about running the marathon again? Like, all the pain. And no, I was just dehydrated, but whatever. Same diff.
Snark after dark.
That's it. Snark after dark. That's the real marathon.
Oh, gosh. I always like watching all the Snark after dark.
Yeah.
That's good
Yeah,
stuff.
we were on a good run there in the 18s and 19s. Those were probably the highest rated seasons. And then COVID happened, and my life got shut down. It's like, wait, this is what I do. If this was TikTok, my following would go to zero immediately.
Right. That's all there is.
You do need
That's
a
the only reason to
reality
live
show.
in Chicago. Snark after dark. I mean, that's where the action happens. So this is an open invite. Unless I hate you, then you can't come. But the rest of you, when you come to Chicago, find me on Twitter or whatever, and we'll go out and I'll show you the town. It's a lot of fun. It's coming back to life, so that's good. I walked into one bar and it said 2020 longest rain delay ever.
I saw that.
I know, wasn't that brilliant?
Awesome,
I was like, I am coming back here. That is such a perfect description of what 2020 was. I mean, we just erased a year of everybody's lives. Chicago kids still have not been back in school.
Ugh.
I mean, there's some optional deal, but they may go back in the fall, but maybe not. I mean, it's a joke, but whatever.
Unfortunately, I think I'm about ready to be our listeners' worst favorite friend.
Oh, you got to pee?
Well, I do have to pee, and I do know the attention span of our audience.
This is
and
Is this going to be longer than Jared's?
It could be longer than Jared's, but I feel like we could talk forever.
Yeah.
Well, I can come back.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing next week?
Yeah, on the
Deal.
way back.
Yeah.
Capture
I like
it.
I'll
this.
tell you about the Hammer Time and Reinecker wedding.
You could do the profit version of
Oh, that would be
Why.
fun. Sure.
No, this was fantastic. We didn't know where it was going to go when we started. I'm glad the direction that it did go.
Yeah.
I'm happy. You know, I've followed you for a long time. I'm not a very big interaction guy on Twitter, so I've appreciated what you've put out there. Remind our listeners who don't know you how to find you on Twitter.
Snarkosaurus, but it's not spelled like a dinosaur. I had to take what was available, so it's Snark, and then O-saurus, but Saurus is spelled S-A-U-R-O-U-S.
O-U-S.
Or you can find me at GFY_AG.
And Snark Farmer Tour.
And Snark Cattle Tour, and I will repost Time with Snark for the podcast, because that's a feed just for whenever I go on something like this.
Nice.
Sprayer, super sprayer.
Super sprayer. That's my Snark Farmer Tour one.
That's it.
Yet I've still never driven a sprayer. Are you going to let me drive yours, Corey?
We got one going, yeah.
Seriously?
Back through? I'm sure Dad will let you.
I mean, it's an expensive piece. Famous last words.
Yeah, come on.
That's great. What do you think, Corey? Did we do a good job?
I think so. I just know that, I mean, I feel bad saying this because every guest we have is special and I'm really excited for, but like I can always tell the night before and the day leading up to, like the ones I'm really excited for, like I dream about it.
Right.
I'm like, and I haven't met Snark before, and it's like, it was that again. I think, and I can probably count on one hand who those people were, and like I said, not taking away from any of the other guests because they're awesome, but it's just people that I've
I'm
dreamed
honored.
of meeting. So, yep. I'm
That's
happy.
kind.
Yep.
Thank you.
So.
No, we really have had a great time. Listeners, thank you for continuing to follow us. Continue to send us connections and people that you want us to interview and have a conversation with on Farm for Fun episodes. Doesn't have to just be profit episodes. Send us an email, farm4profitllc@gmail.com. Let us know who we should be talking to.
You gonna ask them the question or no?
Oh, we can, yeah. So you've been around a lot of farmers, a lot of successful people, and a lot of people who have failed. So let's not worry about those that haven't
Maybe we
done
should
it
ask
well.
them about it, traders.
We always like to ask our guests, what do the most successful people have in common?
Well, I think that's pretty easy. They have a curiosity to learn more, constantly a humility, and then an eagerness to try things other people haven't. And probably the biggest thing is no matter what happens in life, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. So just keep getting up.
I like that part.
I think
the keep getting back up part.
The one thing that Snark reminds me of, and when you asked that question, it clicked in my head, was like, a lot of the successful people have failed like so miserably before. Like, they've went broke.
I've gone bankrupt twice.
They've went broke. I mean, the rich beyond we could ever know has gone bankrupt several times, but they learned from it and they came back, and so yeah, I put you in that same category when you say you've been bankrupt before, so you're just on your way back up.
Well, that's the thing. Once you've failed and you've dealt with that failure, you know you survived. And I think a lot of people live in this fear of failure. And I think it's really hard in legacy farms. I've heard this a lot in small town bars is, when people hear my story, they're like, I almost lost my legacy farm. Now, I don't know the pressure, right? My mom's first generation immigrant. My dad's from Kentucky. My great grandparents were coal miners. I'm like, you guys couldn't have just gone like 100 miles west into Missouri or done anything. You just stopped here to work for Carnegie. Yeah. But that's neither here nor there. I think the thing is, like, once you've failed and you've come back and got back to the top, if you fail again, it's just no big deal. Yeah. I mean, it's painful. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of brain damage I have, and I get nasty at times. And I try to remove that negativity from my life. It's something we talked about during the break. But you just keep getting back up. And as long as you fight off your back, like I always remember that from wrestling in high school, fight off your back. Yep. Just keep fighting. And tomorrow, maybe a better day, maybe not. But if you keep fighting, eventually there'll be bluer skies ahead. And that's no bullshit, right? Like, I've literally gone through one of the hardest seasons of my entire life. And my pinned tweet is, keep shifting, keep moving in your despair. Blame nobody, expect nothing, do something. And that's it. I mean, we can send it on that.
GFY.AG, win more days than you lose.
That's it.
Right?
Not even. Batting 300 gets you in the Hall of Fame.
So, all right. Well, crack adult distributing beer makes you drink. You deserve it.
Intro music recorded by Tyler Rickton and the High Bank Boys. Commentary added by Elena Montemagni. And credit to bensound.com for music.